So that was a bit scary, but felt I'd got David around for a while, so he would support me in whatever I needed to do. And there wasn't a lot of choice, really. And they both said they knew me, what the other guy had seen me from afar, if you like. So I decided I had to throw my 2 pennyworth in, and I had to give it my all.
From Ministry of Work, welcome to Greater Manchester's Greatest Minds podcast, a show about Greater Manchester's pioneers, entrepreneurs and visionaries, and the stories that brought their ideas to life. I'm Eddie Whittingham, and on today's show, Jackie Hyde shares her journey of growing a multi-award-winning insurance brokerage, all whilst juggling a family, a cancer diagnosis, and managing the business when a traumatic accident left her running the business alone. Jackie has over 30 years' experience within the insurance industry, and as the owner and manager of Stanmore Insurance and Dot to Dot, managing insurance premium for businesses across the UK into the hundreds of millions of pounds. There are few better names in the world of insurance than Jackie Hyde.
So I came from a very working class family. I'm very proud of being a working class family. My dad ended up going in the army for a while just to earn some money and support the family and give the family something that he didn't think he could have given if he hadn't done that. So I'm quite proud of that as well. So I spent 5 years in Germany.
Wow.
Don't remember any of it because I was too young. And then grew up in Oldham. So when we came back from Germany, I was 5. And we then lived in Oldham. I went to school in Oldham. Nothing particularly exciting. Hated school. Didn't like school at all. I think I realise now that I was I'm not academic. You know, I'm not the one that reads books and learns stuff from that perspective, unlike a book I really, really like. And then did my A-levels, just about scraped through it. Thought I'd go to catering college.
Right.
But decided right at the last minute I just didn't want to go. Couldn't really tell you why, just didn't feel like I wanted to go. So mum and dad said, right, well, go on then, go and get a job.
Yeah.
And on those days you sort of wrote letter after letter after letter to banks, building society banks, and wrote to an insurance company. Had no idea what insurance was, but wrote to one anyway. And I worked for a commercial union for a number of years. And my priority for me was to get married and have a family, so I got married at 20.
Wow, young.
Yeah, young, really. Daft, maybe. I had my daughter at 23. And at that point then, when I had my daughter, the insurance world in general really, is that you took maternity leave. It was 6 months, and you either came back full time or you just didn't come back. There was no choices, no part time.
No, it wasn't, yeah.
No options from that point of view. So I decided I needed to come back because Steve says we couldn't afford for me to stay at home. So we went back. But for me, my job at the time was a job. Went to work, did a job, came home. Went to work, did a job, came home. Didn't have any real passion for it or anything like that. And then when I went back to work after I had Jen, the view really was that I just felt written off. Wasn't invited to certain things because I was being told, well, you're a working mum, you won't want to do this, you won't want to do that. And I don't know why it really got to me, but just something got under my skin. So I saw a job at Stanmore and thought, right, okay, then I'm going to go for this, because the only reason really was it was on my doorstep at home.
Fair enough.
And I could drop Jenny off, go to work, come back, pick her up and go home, and I'd be home a bit early rather than travelling into Manchester. And that's where my journey really started, I suppose, as far as a career was concerned, because I met a guy and I thought, how can you be so passionate about the job you do?
Yeah, probably not experienced that before, I guess.
Never, really, because in an insurance company world, you talk to brokers who know about insurance, so there's no real reason to explain anything. It's just a communication to get a sale of a job or whatever. So to go somebody who says that you always have to find the answer if the client needs it, I just thought I really quite fancy this job. So I got all excited and left, and then got told I hadn't got the job.
Oh, shit. The irony now.
The irony now, absolutely. So then
what was the job? What was it?
It was account handler.
Okay.
So, and there was only 5 people in this. And this guy had been there 10 years and decided to leave and go somewhere else. And I got the impression he really wanted a bloke.
Right.
Okay, so I really wanted a bloke and wanted some experience, and that's basically what he told me. So I was disappointed, went back to my previous job. And then I got a phone call to say that they'd re-interviewed and still hadn't found anybody else, and I was the best of the back bench.
Scraping the barrel now, so please come back. How old was the business at that stage?
The business would have been, you're testing my maths now, probably 20 odd years old.
Oh, right. So a pretty established business, yeah. How many sort of members of staff would it have had?
Well, it was part of an accountancy firm. So an accountant had set it up. So he'd an accountancy firm and then decided that he would have a building society. You know, we used to go in and have your mortgage and everything. And on the back of that, well, you'd mortgage your house or you'd need house insurance and you might have a car. So he set it up around that sort of side and also a small life side business. So the company was quite big. There were probably 30 people working there. Yeah. But in the insurance broking side, there was only 5. So not major high street broker, and had moved more into commercial, which is why the commercial arm had come in, which was what the job I really wanted. Yeah.
So they invite you back in.
Yeah.
And you weren't too offended because you obviously went back in.
No. Might be more offended now if they'd have done it to me now. not at the time. Just disappointed. And then went for the second interview and then got told there was another guy that fancied the job. So now there was me and him. So I said to the guy who ended up being my boss, okay, well, I'll put up with that, but can you let me know by Friday whether I've got the job or not? Then I can get on with my weekend. So he didn't ring me. So eventually I rang up and said, look, forget this now. I'm not doing this anymore. So he turned up on my doorstep 2 days later and offered me the job. And Steve says, don't cut your nose off to spite your face, Jackie, because you want this job, so you better take it. So the rest is history.
Were you, because I know you in a good way as a headstrong, independent person.
Yeah.
Were you always like that?
I was always competitive.
Yeah.
So I played a lot of sport when I was younger. So I always wanted to win, whatever it was, but didn't probably see that as in my career. So as I developed in the business, I think I became more strong-headed, really. But I think confidence comes into that, Eddie. I think it's that you believe that you know what you're saying is right. And if you're not so sure about it, you won't necessarily show a stronger head. Yeah. If that makes sense.
Yeah. So obviously starting the job, what, do you take to it straight away? Is it something that you fall in love with? Is it,
I fell in love with it straight away.
Right.
I really did. And I think it was because I was talking directly to customers, to clients, and realising one of the things he always said to me is you always need to pitch whatever you say at the right level. So he taught me to know when I was talking to an FD or whether I was talking to someone who absolutely knew nothing about insurance and where you needed to pitch your level of explaining things. And I like to do that. I like to win business. I like to renew business. It was just that sort of opportunity to do that, as opposed to what I'd previously done was just spoke to people who already knew what I knew.
Yeah, probably quite transactional.
Yeah, very much so.
Probably a bit boring, I dare say.
Yeah, definitely.
And then how did that progress?
So I worked there for a while, and then the job got a bit, not boring as such, but didn't feel like we were going anywhere. So I decided I'd see whether there was another brokerage firm. So I applied for a job in Manchester with a big brokering firm and got offered the job and went to see my boss and said, I'm really sorry, but I'm handing my notice in. So he ripped it up and threw it in the bin and said, what's going on? What do we have to do? So we talked it all through. And I said, I just don't feel like I'm probably progressing now as I probably could do. So I probably got the career bug by that particular time. I'd also had my second child by then. So I'd got 2 mouths to feed as well. Just felt like I could go a bit further. So he said, well, what do we need to do? So that's what I said to him. And then within a short period of time, I ended up with the management of the team that worked for me. So we're still relatively small at that point, but the opportunity to sort of control it and move forward and have a little bit more control over my own destiny. So I turned that job down and became the manager.
Was it quite unusual? Obviously, you got 2 mouths to feed there, like you said, 2 kids. Yeah. Was it quite unusual to be as career driven at that stage, do you think, compared to your peers?
I think it was for a woman in my industry. So insurance is still
quite
very,
old
very
school.
male dominated, still steeped in 100 years of history and not necessarily moving forward with the times. I think it is in the insurance company side now. Seen lots of women at senior positions, but you don't come across many women at senior positions in a broking firm, if you like. So, and I think by then I'd become a bit stronger minded and a bit more forceful of where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do. So was ready to drive it forward and wasn't quite bothered what was going on around me really from that perspective.
Good for you. And then obviously you start managing that team, and then how does that sort of move forward any further from there? Because obviously there's a bit of a gap between where you were then and where you are now.
Yeah, there is quite a bit of a gap. So it all happened again because the guy that I turned down at the bigger brokerage firm had then moved to a smaller brokerage firm near where I lived and contacted me to say, I've got a position here for commercial broking manager at a bigger broking firm than what I was working at. I'd really like you to come and consider working for me. So I was a bit fed up again. And the business seemed to have got stuck again. So I went and spoke to my boss afterwards and said, I've got this position. He said, well, you're not going anywhere. So I was like, I've had this conversation a while ago. So
Deja vu.
And what I didn't appreciate really was the business was financially struggling.
Right.
We were part of this accountancy firm, financial services. We had secretaries, receptionists, all the things that brokers didn't have. So my boss had the opportunity to either stay and become the financial services guy and sell the business that I was in, the general insurance broking, which is what I did, or have the opportunity to take it away from that business, separate it, and go and work with somebody else where there might be an opportunity to merge. So he said to me, whatever happens here, I need you either way. I need either to sell you with the business and I'll make sure you've got the right position. Or if I take it to the next stage, I'd like you to become a business partner. So dangled this very big carrot in front of me. So it took me a while and him a long while to make the decision of what he wanted to do. And in the end, thank goodness, he decided that he was going to take the second option. So I decided to go with him. I was given a directorship and I remortgaged my house.
Shit. Quite a big
decision.
With 2 mouths to feed.
With 2 mouths to feed. And went home to Steve and said, look, this opportunity's arisen. He said, well, I don't think we're going to be moving house then, are we?
Yeah, I'm going to stay here for a little while. So, I mean, that presumably wasn't a decision to be taken lightly at the time. So it's literally, you need to put up X to get involved in this business. And what, 50-50?
No. I went and got some advice from a very close friend who said to me, I've just booked you an appointment to go and see my accountant. You need some independent advice. Really grateful for that. And his accountant told me I had to have 26%.
Okay.
So the reason being is that 1% from 25 means you've got some controlling situation. So the business can't be sold without your permission. So if I'd bought the 25%, I'd have had a bigger problem in the future.
Yeah.
But I didn't. I had the 26. So that 1% meant that it would give me a bit more protection as an individual. Not that I had any doubts on my business partner at the time.
No.
He was my boss. I'd worked for him a long time.
Yeah, and trusted him.
And he actually gave me some part of the business free because at that time I'd set my nursery side of things that I was doing, and he saw that I'd brought in quite a lot of business on my own. So he said that amount of money that I brought in, he actually gave me as part of my shareholding.
Yeah, that's quite fair.
Which was really nice, really, and you felt really appreciated because he knew that it was a big gamble for me to go with him, really.
To remortgage.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did you? Yeah, I can imagine that was pretty scary at the time. Because that's also stepping into the unknown there, right? Because you knew the industry, but to then sort of transition into you're now going to be stepping up and taking over. Did you have any sort of reservations on that side of it?
No, I don't think so, because I'd always got on well with David, my boss at the time, who ended up my partner. We'd always got on. We didn't always go the same way in a journey, but we always wanted the end result. So we used to have occasional challenges of where we wanted to go.
Sure.
And I absolutely believed the business could go forward. It was just David didn't have his eye on it at the time because there was all sorts of stuff going on. And I thought, well, if we go there together, we can do this together, and we both believe we could do it together, and absolutely that's what we did.
And so how many was in the team then?
There was probably 6, 7 of us. We made one person redundant, which was sad, but it was necessary.
Happens,
and the 6 that went, absolutely believed that they could do it. There was no regrets in doing it. Everybody was there to do the best for us. So no, it was definitely the right decision.
Were you still at that stage in the building you are now?
No, we moved. So we moved from originally in Radcliffe. We went up to Tottington with a view that we'd potentially merge with another company, but that just didn't work out. But the company grew to the degree we'd outgrown the actual premises. Yeah. Went back where we started and went back to Radcliffe and moved back in the old premises.
And so you obviously venture down, you've remortgaged the house, taken a bit of a leap of faith.
Yeah.
What's next in the journey?
We did that for quite some time and then we moved back. And then the big decision really was that my business partner was getting older and had some ill health and he wanted to slow down. So he wanted to exit and I couldn't afford 74%. So we had to make a big decision, and the big decision we should merge. So we went and looked around, and he knew 2 people that had a smaller business and that we should merge with them. And the decision then was that David would long-term exit, stay around for a while, but long-term exit. I would have a third, and the 2 guys that we merged with would have a third each. So suddenly I was equal partners with 3 people. Still got controlling share. Yeah. But we would be 3 equal partners.
So that was quite an attractive proposition, presumably.
It was a scary proposition because it was 2 to 1. So the risk for me was quite high because they were already existing partners and I was
coming in as
So that was a bit scary, but felt I'd got David around for a while, so he would support me in whatever I needed to do, and there wasn't a lot of choice really.
I suppose, it was kind of make do, but I can imagine, going into that situation, probably a little nervous, because presumably you've never worked with them, you don't know them from Adam at that point.
I knew one of them, didn't know the other. I knew the other one from meetings and stuff like that, and they both said they knew me. What the other guy had seen me from afar, if you like. So I decided I had to throw my 2 pennyworth in, and I had to give it my all, and I had to give the guys my all, and to some degree David had to take a slightly back seat because I'll always remember my past, but I now had a different future, and I had to give it a go really. So then we also then acquired another company at the same time, so we suddenly became 12 of us, right? So quite a bit bigger.
Changing.
Yeah, absolutely.
12 of you, and then 3 of you ultimately running it at the top. Was that always easy going?
No, partnerships are never easy.
No, they never are.
I think anybody who has a really good, strong partnership should be very, very grateful they've got one, really, because I think you're not always on the same journey, and you've got to try and find what that journey looks like, and there's got to be lots of give and take from that point of view. So one of the guys we partnered really well, threw himself in his lot with a lot of the business we had. But the other guy, just his view was it's the same but bigger, and it could not be the same but bigger. There was things we had to do with a different size of organisation. You needed to put different things into place, and he just didn't want to do that. So along bit later, we exited him out of the business, so it ended up being the 2 of us then, but we then had a non-exec situation. So we had an external company that had bought the third.
Okay, interesting.
So that was a company view with people that are around to come in and support us in what we were trying to do. So it created a slightly different
dynamic. But was that quite helpful though?
Yeah, I thought it was really useful having another company that they were a bit silent, but not completely, if you know what I mean. So they let us get on with what we needed to do. But if we had any issues, then they would step in when they needed to step in, really, which became very important in the long term.
Yeah. Is that sort of the next big moment in that journey, or?
Yeah, we continued to grow the business. I suppose for me, the biggest part during that journey really was the development of my children's nursery scheme, which took place 21 years ago. And one of my business partners got involved in that, but it's always been my driver. And it's probably one of the most important parts of my development was to grow that from nothing, really. So having joined a business that was already business and you develop it and you move forward. To actually create something from nothing was pretty special, really. And at the same time, I also had a really large account that a big property owner's book, probably the biggest I've ever worked with, that just grew to become a complete and utter monster in the end, that took over my life, really. And that created me to have, when the big property on account caused me to have a bit of a meltdown, because I think I'd thrown everything in it and for 9 years, and eventually, and we picked that up just as David and I had set up this partnership on our own. So that was before we'd done the merger, and I'd just thrown everything, learnt so much in it. I never regret doing it, because I'd learned so much to deal with sort of a really massive account and a very demanding person right at the very, very top who always wanted an extra piece of me. And when that went, I couldn't understand why we'd just been snuffed out. We hadn't done anything wrong. We just decided that they preferred somebody else.
And was it quite a large part of the business revenue-wise as well, presumably?
It was huge. Yeah. So it put us in some financial trouble again from that perspective. We were already paying for another acquisition we'd had. So losing a big chunk of money at the time for a business of our size did some serious damage. So we were then in financial trouble. We were then still having to pay for our acquisition. And I just felt lost.
Yeah, understandably. How did it affect you personally?
I just wondered why I gave so much of me for somebody who could just say, don't like you anymore, from that point of view. I mean, I still kept the MD's personal stuff, so it wasn't his decision, it was somebody else's decision. And when we picked that business up, the financial guy has said, the day you're complacent is the day you lose the account. I'd never been complacent, so I'd still lost the account. So I think I just lost a bit of me. So I went and got a business coach, a female business coach. And that was really good for me. First thing I did was take 6 weeks off work.
Right.
And just regroup, really, and decide what I wanted to do. And she was fantastic. She made me realise that at that time I needed to rest, but at the same time I needed to remember why I went to work. And what that shiny object looks like. And
was it a bit of a burnout, do you think, really?
Yeah, completely.
Yeah.
Complete and utter burnout, really. And it took me a long time to decide I wanted to go back. And I think that also showed during that period cracks in the relationship with my business partner.
Yeah.
Because he wasn't particularly supportive. I think he saw an opportunity that maybe somebody had got a weakness that he hadn't seen before, as opposed to trying to support you to get that. It just didn't happen. He just wanted it all, and probably it was a benefit if I wasn't around. So that was quite hard to take, and it was the start of the crack of the relationship, really.
Yeah, that's sad as well. Like when you've gone into it together, and then they're preying on.
Yeah.
It's not good.
No.
So obviously you take that time out, you sort of regroup, refocus, recover.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Who sort of comes back out of that? Were you different? Did it change at all, or did you just come back rested?
I think I came back very, very different, Eddie, to be honest. I think for me, I'd lived in a world of males all my life, and particularly at higher then senior level, I was going to meetings and I was like one or two females in a room of 60, 70 men. So what I'd learned from a very talented female business coach was that I had to change the way I thought, and I had to become me and lose all this stuff that I was clinging on to, because her view being is I was living in male energy, and we all have male and female energy on both sides, and we all need both of it. But I was living too much in the male energy. I was a bit aggressive. I was a bit too strong-minded in lots of ways.
Trying to overcompensate for the male environment you're in.
Absolutely. Yeah. So her view being is you just need to be pleased about who you are, and she did some profiling, and I focused and realised what I was really good at, and I put all my energy when I came back in to the nursery scheme, and it took off like a rocket. So I didn't have this one big account anymore that was draining and energy sucking. Now I had loads of little small that were all added up to now the big company that I'd lost and could potentially overtake it. And I remember seeing the guy whose account I lost, who I still used to do his personal insurance, and said, the day I lost your account was the best thing that ever happened to me. And he said, that's not very nice. And I went, but it's true.
Yeah.
Because
you almost needed
all
to
those eggs in
rebuild.
one basket was so dangerous for us as a business.
And a lot of businesses do exactly that time and time again, and it's risky, isn't it?
It is risky. Sometimes you don't have a choice.
No, of course, exactly. You're not going to say no at the end of the day.
But you have to recognise it.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, my business partner didn't like the new Jackie that came back.
Why?
I don't think he liked that I was very focused and I really believed in me, that I don't think I necessarily did before. I knew I was good at what I did, but I don't think I recognised I was good at what I did. And I was very happy to be me. I was happy to show some vulnerability, which I think is really important, because I've always said for years that the day you show your vulnerability is the magic happens. Because you're having a tough time, somebody will always help you. And you need to be able to do that when you run a business. You need to be able to say, life is tough. Can you help? I think I was quite resilient, became a lot more resilient than I was when I left from that perspective. So it's the best thing I ever did was meet this woman.
And interesting, because I presume, and it is only a presumption, but he would have maybe expected you to come back a bit meek and mild, probably from that. Not even fully recovered almost. Because I think that's people's interpretation sometimes, isn't it?
And I didn't come back recovered after 6 weeks.
No, sure.
So I spent 12 months working with my business coach, and we're still strong friends today. I spent that period of time, and he just didn't like it. But I think you have to be you. You can't be anybody else, can you?
Yeah, and that's when your own issues start to crop up if you're not being authentic to yourself, true to yourself. So the cracks may be widening a little there, but on the plus side, your new business going really well.
Yes. Yeah, went really, really well. Really focused on the scheme, the nursery scheme, and delighted where that was going. And then it was coming to a head because the non-exec, we had a new non-exec join our board, and he'd made his mind up that if he was going to be involved in the business and they own shares in it, he needed a greater involvement in it. So he started to come in and ask some really serious questions about what was going on with the finances, because my business partner was in charge of the finances, and spent a lot of time sort of looking around that sort of area, and seriously challenged, and could see the cracks between us, and pushed the cracks.
In a good way or a bad way?
I think he was right to do it. I don't think it was an easy process for either of us, to be fair to the other guy. I don't think it was easy for either of us to see it. We had different ways of the way we wanted to run our business. And we were looking to try and work out a way how we could split, but none of us knew what we were going to do or how we were going to do it when a catastrophic situation occurred. And my business partner had a major accident in France at the same time that Michael Schumacher had his.
Oh, shit.
So a very, very similar situation, and was in induced coma for 2 weeks in France.
Fucking hell. And the day that news hit you, where were you? What were you doing?
I was in the office, and I'd just come back. I just celebrated my 50th birthday in a lovely cruise in the Caribbean. And I got back to work on the 2nd, and the phone call came in to say this accident had occurred. And I said to his wife, I know we've got problems here, but that's in a box now, because all that matters now is to get him better, well, and look after you. So we carried on paying money to him to make sure him and his family could do that. And he didn't return for many, many weeks after that. Thank goodness he did return to the UK, and spent quite a lot of time in hospital, and had quite a serious brain injury.
Okay, how does that affect the running of the business, even from a practical standpoint?
Well, it was incredibly difficult because business was quite chunky at that particular time, and there was only him and I looked after clients. There was only us at the front line. He went to see clients, so I had to pick all his clients up as well as mine.
And presumably as well, even just from a practical perspective, there'll have been things that he did in the business that you didn't do,
yes,
and vice versa.
Yes. So my accountants were fantastic. They came straight in. My non-exec was fantastic. He came in to support us, and we ended up needing to pay some extra stuff to help with that. And that was in the January. In the February, the lady who does all my accounts, her daughter got seriously poorly, so she left for 5 weeks.
Okay.
That was in the February. And in the March, I was diagnosed with breast cancer.
Fucking hell.
So
busy...
it was a three hit whammy.
Yeah,
really.
Say it comes in threes, don't they?
Yeah, they're not the threes I wanted at that particular time.
Fucking hell.
But you just, lots of people around me were saying you needed to pack it in and concentrate on your health. And my view being is no, because I've got a lot of people that work for me. And if anything, this is going to keep me going, which might sound really silly.
No, I can understand that. It's your purpose and your goal and a reason to
do what you needed to do. And I was so lucky. There were so many people around me who wanted to help, but who were already helping before this. Actually, the third one hit me. But I'd gone. One thing I will say to anybody listening is I found out because I went for my first mammogram. So don't ever turn down an opportunity to have a test, because if I hadn't had that test, I wouldn't have known what I was carrying. So I got told I had to have surgery within 10 days. So I contacted 2 very close brokers who would have been classed as my competitors but weren't, and said, would you just look after my business for a little while? And they came in and took over the business for 1 week. And then I worked 1 week from home after my surgery and then came back to work.
Wow. Yeah, people must have thought that was crazy.
Possibly. My husband certainly did. And my friends certainly did. But I knew I had to do it, and I knew that it would keep me going, because I just couldn't see me just sitting at home saying I'm poorly. What was the point? And the next stage would have been radiotherapy. My next stage was radiotherapy. So it was just a period of recovery before I then had to go for radiotherapy.
I think this is a really interesting point about having a business as well, isn't it? It's all well and good when things are going well and it's great being your own boss and all that flexibility, but the reality is when bad things happen, and in your case, 3 in a very quick succession, to be able to then carry on running that business, growing that business, whatever, keeping the lights on even, is very, very difficult. And I mean, I can't even imagine the stress. That presumably is the most stressful period of your existence.
Yeah, it's probably hardest. I mean, I looked after my dad for 3 years later because I lost my mum unexpectedly, and my dad needed a carer, so I looked after my dad at the same time. So yeah, I think, and then you had the pandemic. There's so many things. I think in the last, particularly in my last 10 years, I've had 10 hard years, I think. And every time you sort of thinking, sometimes it's business, it'll be okay, we'll get over this and we'll be fine. And then something else decides to come. But if you've got the passion for what you do, and you've got people who you are responsible for, and you've got clients that you are responsible for, what are you going to do? So sometimes you don't have a choice. You just roll your sleeves up and crack on. But I think the most important thing for me is when I met a coach, Jane, one of the things she taught me is get good business peers behind you.
Yeah.
So I found good business peers, and I had people that I could ring. So I had family that were saying, or close friends that were saying, you need to take some more time off. What are you doing? But I had business friends who would ring me up and say, can I just check how you're doing? And I'm going, I'm all right. No, you're not. And then they'd turn up and take me for a coffee and then tell me to get back to work, because they knew that's what I actually needed to do.
Yeah, because they're the only ones who truly get it. We've spoken about it previously, but you, as a founder of a business owner, you are in an extremely isolating position. You can't say some of the things you'd like to your loved ones, or you can tell them, but I think it's quite common for business. They maybe don't want to tell their partner how bad the financial deal is at the minute, or you certainly can't tell the staff, or whatever it might be. So, yeah, to have those real trusted business peers around you, invaluable.
Absolutely invaluable, and they'll tell you the truth. There's no sugarcoating it from another business owner. Yeah. They don't sugarcoat anything.
No.
Do you know what I mean?
And I think the unusual thing that they can give you advice that is purely business related. They could be like, care for you, here's your coffee, line in the sand now, Jackie, your business needs this, this and this, and if you don't do it, you sometimes need that, don't you?
Yeah, you do. And I think that's the thing, you build the people behind you who, they don't have an agenda, you just look after each other. It's just it's like an inner circle of support mechanisms that are so important. And if you really look it and you can find different ones, you pull on the one
that you need at that time.
that you need at that time. And you also know who's going to give you a hug and say, come on, it's okay. And you're also going to know one who's going to kick you to say, get a grip now and sort this out.
And that's what you had at that point, presumably.
I had all of them.
Which is quite harsh when you think
all
about
of them.
it. It's quite harsh, though, even that person who said get a grip at that time, given what you're going through.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you obviously wanted to focus on it, but what was your, I guess, long-term thinking at that time? Did you have, like, thoughts about where you wanted the business to go still? Was it just surviving the here and now?
I've always had a focus on growth. Mm-hmm. So during all that hard time, we still grew. So I've always had a...
wild, by the way. Yeah. It's amazing.
I've always had that vision. I'm always moving forward. I'm a strong believer if you don't move forward, you just move back. Mm-hmm. There is no standing still in a business. You've got to just keep going and keep going. At that particular time, it was survival. I had to survive. I had to personally survive. Mm-hmm. Although it was tough, the treatment, particularly the radiotherapy, because I did 3 weeks of radiotherapy, so every single day went for radiotherapy. That was probably the harder period than the surgery, because it was grueling, and I had all my treatment outside working hours because I had to keep going. And what people don't realise with radiotherapy, there's something people used to say it's called fatigue. And I used to think one morning I was a bit tired, a bit naive, I suppose, really. But it wasn't. It was like I used to just like somebody had got a vacuum cleaner and sucked all your energy out in the middle of the day, and you just got exhausted. And then after about an hour, you'd just be okay. So I had to learn to manage that. My daughter called it a wave. Mum, you're having a wave, you need to sit down, you've gone very white. Okay, fair enough. So I needed to manage me alongside the business and not be stupid. But there was an element of that. But at the same time, I needed to get through the process of removing from the business.
Yeah, and where do you even start with that?
It's a process. He's got his agenda, I've got my agenda. And we've got to find a way
to come to the
conclusion. And in the end, cutting a long story short, after lots and lots of legal wranglings between lots of solicitors, he just said, will you give me this amount of money to buy me out? And I said, absolutely. And that was it. There was no haggle. There was no question about it. That was the money you wanted. That's the money you got. And we moved forward. And the day after we signed the papers, I then went in for reconstructive surgery.
Wow.
And then I had another hit. But that was just sheer exhaustion. So I had to take some time to pull myself back together again. And then I've never really looked back because it's been mine. And I've been able to run it. The next stage was to buy the final third of the shares that was now owned by a corporate company, which I did a few years ago. So that was the sort of next stages. So it's just always keeping you focused on what's the next stage and not be complacent.
It's not easy to do though, that. That's why, this it isn't for everyone. Founding a business, is it? Because to have that clarity of thought while you're going through all that is quite remarkable, I think.
Thank you.
Yeah. So you now employ how many people?
We're not so short off 30.
Nice, great.
30
That's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, we've doubled the size of the business in the last 10 years.
Yeah, and you own the property you're in Bolton?
I do.
And how's business been even since the pandemic?
Pandemic was really hard. Really hard because you're moving your team home. Everybody was working from home. So that whole focus on making sure everybody was okay was quite worrying, really. And some people did better at working from home than others, particularly our young staff who were going from a bed to a desk in the same room.
Yeah, it's not fun.
Was just not fun. Most people hated the insurance industry because nobody was paying claims. So that was quite hard to manage that from a distance and make sure everybody was okay when they were being sworn at and shouted at. And, we had guys wanting to swear back at clients when we had others in tears. And, that was a really, really hard period. But very lucky, got a very strong, immediate family unit, got a nice house. And I just recently moved to a new house at that time. So I had a nice house to live in. So I was a lot better off than a lot of other people, I think, through the pandemic. But when we came out of it, I made my view quite early than I think a lot of business owners did, that my team were coming back. They were coming back into the office because I didn't think it was doing anybody's mental health any good to be working in an isolated situation. And my business is growing, and I've got a young team, got some young team, I've got some very experienced people. How can they share their knowledge if you can't, you can't get to speak to them, and you can't share experiences and stuff like that and solve problems together?
100%. I think there are benefits from working from home, no doubt, but exclusively working from home, I just think it's terrible for your mental health, terrible for your social circles, terrible for that career progression, that development. There's no brainstorming. It's so much harder to do collaborative work on a Zoom call, as we all know. Yeah. So interesting. Did you have any kickback from
No,
staff
because
on
we've always offered flexible working, and we still offer flexible working. Yeah. So if somebody's not well, for the day, if somebody's partner's not well, if somebody's coming to service a dishwasher, there's a reason to be at home, or you just want a day where you're just not going to get mithered, then all my staff have the opportunity to work from home. They've all got 2 screens at home. They've all got laptops now. We've made that whole facility available to them. But they want to be in the office, which is really special that the team want to be in the office. So we've spent a lot of money on a refurbishment of the office. So that was they all came back. We were out the office for a long period of time, but we even had a temporary office, and people wanted to come to the temporary office. So they'd already got that vibe that why wouldn't you want to work with your colleagues? You missed them for what we were nearly 18 months, 2 years out together and not seeing each other. So we put a few incentives. There's nice coffee there, there's fresh fruit there, and we've got great offices to work in. But most important thing is the team want to be there. Yeah,
so important, isn't it? And business has been booming since, presumably, because of the growth that's been behind it.
Yeah, we've done really well. The nursery scheme particularly has grown now. We insure something in the region of sort of 3,000 to 4,000 clients across the whole of the UK, who pay £7.5 million in gross written premium. So that's doing well, and the commercial side's doing well. So yeah, we're in good shape. We're in good shape. I don't know about a lot of people though are struggling to get good people to come and work for them, who've got the right attitude. So we've still got the people who want to work from home. Yeah. They want that hybrid situation, and we're not prepared to offer it. Not because we want to be awkward, because we've got to stick to what we believe is the right thing to do.
And sometimes as well, being a business, that you've got to make the difficult decisions at the top for the benefit of the business. The business is what pays everyone's wages, right?
Yeah, and I think the other thing about being a team in your office, how much do you get from having a chat around a coffee machine? How much do you pick up from a colleague when you're having a bit of a hard time? Mm-hmm. How much do you get a different angle on it? How much does it benefit you to actually come and forget some of the stuff that's going on at home? Because we all have it, don't we? We all have, get to a stage where you've got elderly parents, or you've got, something else going on in your life that actually you just need a bit of a break from all of that. So I think it's not just about coming and doing a job. It's about the community you create within your environment, really.
I completely agree. And what's next? What's the next milestone that you're aiming for?
The next milestone really is to keep my legacy beyond me. So, I'm unfortunately getting older, Eddie, although I don't really like to admit it. But I'd like to be at a stage where the business survives and still goes. I'm very fortunate my daughter works in the business, is doing a fantastic job. We've got some really talented people who work for us. And I don't want to be sold and lose my business into a really big organisation that means it's lost something. And that's my goal. That's where I want to be. And I'd like to stay in the business, not up to my eyes in hefty work. I would like to occasionally slow down and do some of the bigger stuff that I enjoy doing. I like, I'm involved with some charities. I do some mentoring. There's other bits and pieces that is now my next stage. Yeah. So I'd like to get the right people in the business that it'll carry on beyond me, really.
So, as someone who's been in business a little while, shall we say?
Only a little.
What are some of the kind of key things you'd say that people could take away from your journey that they could learn from?
So one of the things, I mentioned it earlier, was to have a good coach or a mentor. You don't need them all the time. and you've got to find the right one. Everybody wants to be a coach, so I think it's finding the right coach. And for me, it's a coach with experience who's been there, done that, and probably got the T-shirt. So I've been very fortunate. I've had a number of coaches through my life. I don't have one at the moment, but I have a lot of people that I can go to for advice. And I think you've got to find the right one. You've got to feel like someone connects, somebody who'll make you accountable. In respect of what you've agreed, you said you're going to do, you need to go away and do it. Because when you're on your own, that's quite hard being accountable. Very. Making yourself accountable for what you do. And I don't know whether you have that every now and again, but sometimes I'm just don't have the motivation one day.
Well, you've got when you are your own boss, there is no boss making you do stuff. No. So you have days where you could be doing more than you are.
Yeah, and I think that motivational piece. But sometimes I think on your journey, you're reaching a stage where actually you get a bit stuck. So to actually go and find somebody, I had a coach when I first became a director, when I first bought in. That was really important. And then the coach that supported me through my mini meltdown, shall we say, put it that way. And then I've had a strategic coach since then. So that's been more on the strategic side of where we move the business as opposed to anything personally to help me as a person. So I think they're really important. But you don't have to have one. There's got to be a need to have one and take your time to find the right one.
Yeah, because they're not a shortcut, are they? They need to be people who can sort of hold a light on the bits that you need to work on, and then you go away and work on it. Yeah. I think sometimes I see people like trying to use business coaches almost like as a shortcut. It's like, no, there's no shortcut. They'll tell you what they know, but you've still got to do the stuff. Yeah. That's a really good one. Any other bits of advice?
I've been for a number of awards. Not everybody believes in them. I think from an awards perspective, I think what's been important to me, we've only been in them. The first one I went for was after that horrendous first year, where I actually ended up owning the business on my own and running the team on my own. And I went for, one of my coaches put me in for the award. And I ended up winning it. And it enabled me to reflect on my journey. So sometimes actually sitting back, because sometimes we're always looking at what we've not achieved and not necessarily what we have achieved. So I think awards are really important in that respect, not to have the trophy at the end of it. Trophy's really nice, but I think the importance of actually reflecting back through your journey and thinking, well, they ask you a question, you think, oh, actually, yes, I have done that, and yes, I can do that, and yes, I can prove I can do that, I think is really, really important. So we just won an employer award, and I didn't think we'd win it. And our marketing manager, Mel, had done the award, but again, somebody had nominated us to put us forward. And when I looked at Mel's submission, I was like, we've done quite a lot, actually.
It is quite good. But it's that self-reflection, because I think, I've always been sort of laser focused on the next goal, but you never look over your shoulder and go, actually, we've done this, and this. But you do, I think you do sometimes need it as well, because I think if you don't pat yourself on the back, not that you should, you're not massaging your ego, but you just need to recognise where you've come from sometimes.
Yeah, I think that's important. Also realise what that award might mean to somebody else. So when we won the Employer of the Year award, I had the team with me, so we went out and celebrated as a team. Yeah. And whether we won it or not, we knew we were a good team. So that was really nice to do that. And the number of times when we've won awards, clients have been really, nice to you, because you really deserve that. And that again gives you a bit of credibility, or just a gentle pat on the back to say, actually, you're doing a good job, and just force you to do a better job. And if you don't win it, why didn't you win it? And what should you do to make sure you win it next time? Yeah,
and not be afraid, I suppose, to put your name out there, because PR is a big part of growing a business, huge. Right? So I think my experience has been no one's going to do it for you.
Absolutely.
So you do need to sort of bang your own drum a little bit.
Absolutely. And I think the final bit would be surround people that have got skills you haven't got. So realise, I'm a strong believer in profile. I know you do it a lot in our business. We profile because you need to understand how somebody else thinks, how you think, how you might get on somebody else's nerves because you think differently to them. So I'm very sort of intuitive, reactive, but I've got quite a lot of deep thinkers. So I drive them mad where it's like, come on, we need to make this decision. And they're like, let me just go away and think about it. And I'm like, come on, we need to make decisions. So actually recognising that actually somebody needs something different to what you need is quite important. But if you can get yourself surrounded by people who are better than you, so like at the moment, social media, if I didn't have Mel, we're not very good at it because it's just not my bag. AI is the next one coming. I don't even want to go there, Eddie, but we can't ignore it. So I need to find somebody who it floats their boat, really, and move that. So I think surround yourself by good people.
That's Jackie Hyde, owner and manager of Stanmore Insurance and Dot. Jackie continues to be a leading light in her sector and is a great advocate for women in business throughout Greater Manchester and beyond. Thanks so much for listening to the show this week, and please make sure to click the follow button on your podcast app so you don't miss a new episode of the show. And don't forget to check out Ministry of Work, where you can find out more about what we do here. This episode was produced, recorded and edited right here at Ministry of Work, with a special thanks to our studio manager Dan Brown and, of course, to you for listening. I'm Eddie Whittingham, and this has been Greater Manchester's Greatest Minds.